Welcome to Lesson 6 of QMS ISO 9001-2015, Clause-4, Context of the Organization. Did you know that misunderstanding your organization's working environment is one of the biggest reasons that implementations of ISO 9001-2015 fail? Without a clear understanding of your internal and external environment, even the best management system cannot succeed. But here is the good news. Clause 4, context of the organization, is your secret weapon to defeat such problem or to fix such issue. Thus, stay tuned till the end of the discussion, because by the end of this video, you will know exactly how to lay the strongest foundation for your ISO 9001-2015 success. As you remember, in the previous lessons, we have discussed about the first 3 clauses of ISO 9001-2015. These clauses are generally informative clauses because they provide information about the scope, the standard references, and the basic terms that are most frequently used in the standard. They are not mandatory clauses to implement ISO 9001-2015. They are not auditable clauses. Besides, we defined the most important terms used in the standard, which are shall, may, should, maintain, and retain. So if you want this lesson, I will put the link in the description box below. And if you are new to my channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get updates. Thank you. Let's start clause 4, which is a mandatory clause. As we said earlier, the first 3 clauses are not mandatory, they are not auditable, but starting from clause 4 to clause 10, they are mandatory clauses to implement ISO 9001-2015. So they are auditable clauses. And clause 4, context of the organization, is subdivided into 4 subclauses. Let's see one by one. The first subclause is understanding the organization and its context. The organization shall determine external and internal issues, and those issues should be relevant to the purpose and strategic directions affecting the ability to achieve the intended results of its quality management system. Or the organization is required to identify only those issues which are relevant to its purpose and strategic directions, which affect the ability to achieve the intended results of its quality management system. We know the intended result of quality management system in clause 1. Those internal and external issues can be positive and negative factors. The positive factors, which are the opportunities, can be new technologies, favorable regulations, skilled workforce, a strong partnership, which are in favor of the organization, and the organization can exploit those opportunities. On the other side, there are risks, economic instability, supply chain disruption, staff shortage, and regulatory constraints can be termed as negative factors, and the organization must prepare an action plan to mitigate such risks or threats. The external environment or the external issue can include market, culture, stakeholders, regulatory requirements, and so on. And we can identify or we can determine such issues using PESTLE model, that is political, economy, social, technology, environment, and legal issues. And on the other side, internal issues such as the organizational cultures, policies, resources, governance, knowledge, and performance of the organization. And this can be determined by the 7S McKinsey model. The 7S McKinsey model is an abbreviation of structure, system, style, staff, skills, strategy, and shared values. So here we have to know the organization's weakness and strengths so that we can't do on our weakness, or we have to use our strengths. Here, let me ask you one important question. Why understanding this internal and external issue is important? It is important because it helps the organization to design the quality management system that is realistic and effective. It also helps to anticipate the risks and to prepare the action plan to mitigate the risks and to exploit the opportunity. And it also helps to align the quality management system with the strategic goals and external expectations. This is just a format for external and internal issues. For example, factors may include economic, market, machine breakdown. When we consider economic, the issue might be credit availability, and the type is external because it is found outside the organization. If the organization does not have a cash shortage, so such issue does not have any impact on the organization, and no action plan is required, and objective cannot be set for this issue. And if we consider the market, and if there is a high competition of, if we consider market and the issue is high competition, the type is obviously external, and the impact is negative because it affects our sale negatively. And for this, we have to prepare an action plan to mitigate such issue. And the action plan might be to increase customer satisfaction, to attract the customers to our products, and the objective should be set to increase the customer satisfaction. If we consider the factors like machine breakdown and the issue is production loss or efficiency loss, and the type is internal, it's obvious it is internal and it has a negative impacts on our organization, and for this we have to prepare an action plan to ensure preventive maintenance plan, and we have to set an objective, so we can use this format for external and internal issues to identify their impact and to prepare action plan and objectives. The second subclause is understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties, or we can say stakeholders, due to their effect or potential effect on the organization's ability to consistently provide products and services that meet customer and applicable statutory and regulatory requirements. It is up to the organization, or it is a mandate of the organization, to select the interested parties. The criteria to select the interested party is due to their effect or the potential effect on quality management system intended objectives. So the organization shall determine interested parties that are relevant to the quality management system. By interested party, we mean that person, groups, or organizations that can be affected by, or perceive themselves to be affected by the decision or the activity of the organization. And the second is the requirements of these selected interested parties that are relevant to the quality management system shall be determined. After selecting the interested parties and knowing the requirements of these interested parties, the organization shall monitor and review regularly the information about these interested parties and their relevant requirements, because the requirements of these interested parties may vary from time to time or may change from time. Let's take an example of interested parties: customers, employees, regulatory authorities, suppliers, top management, community or public, or the society. Shareholders or owners of the organization can be the interested parties. After determining those interested parties, we have to know their relevant requirements. For example, the customer may need high quality, reliable products or services, on-time delivery, and support. On the other side, the employees require safe working environment, fair treatment, competency development, clear responsibility. Third, regulatory authorities require compliance with laws and regulation and product safety. Suppliers require fair procurement process, timely payments, clear specification and requirements. Top management requires achievement of organizational goals, quality management system performance, customer satisfaction. Community or public require environmental protection and social responsibility from the organization. And lastly, the shareholder or the owner of the company require profitability, legal compliance, sustainable growth, and risk control of the organization. The requirements of each interested party sometimes may have a conflict with one another. For example, if we take customers, customer may require low price, whereas the shareholders or the owners want high price to get more profit. So the main purpose of the quality management system is to meet the requirements of these opposite interests. Let me ask you one question here. Why it is important to understand the needs and expectations of interested parties? In general, understanding the needs and expectations of interested party is a must so as to exist in the market, because understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties helps the organization stay proactive in meeting the expectations of the interested parties, and it reduces the risk of non-conformity or customer dissatisfaction. It supports compliance with legal and contractual obligations, and it strengthens stakeholder trust and continuous improvement. Without satisfying or without meeting the requirements of interested parties, a company cannot exist at all. If we take a simple example, if a company violates a standard or a rule set by a regulatory, so a regulatory may close the company. And the third subclause is determining the scope of the quality management system. Once we determine the interested parties and their relevant requirements, now the organization shall determine the boundaries, what's included and what's excluded, the applicability of the quality management system to establish its scope. When determining this scope, the organization shall consider the external and the internal issue. Second, the requirements of relevant interested parties and the products and services of the organization. Here, one important point is organization shall apply all the requirements of this international standard if they are applicable within the determined scope of its quality management system. The scope of quality management system is determined by the organization. There may be geographical scope, or there may be functional scope, or operation line scope, or the product line scope. The scope of the organization's quality management system shall be available and be maintained as documented information. That means it should be written and updated regularly. The scope shall state the types of products and services covered and provide justification for any requirements of this international standard that the organization determines is not applicable to the scope of its quality management system. If we exclude some portions of the standard, for example, in a company which cannot have an activity of designing and development, if we exclude the design and development requirements, so we have to justify or we have to clarify why we exclude such requirements. Conformity to this international standard may only be claimed if the requirements determined as not being applicable do not affect the organization's ability or responsibility to ensure the conformity of its products and service and the enhancement of customer satisfaction. If we exclude some requirements, that requirements does not affect the quality management system intended objective. Coming to the fourth subclauses, which is quality management system and its processes. The organization shall establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve a quality management system, including the process needed and their interactions in accordance with the requirements of this international standard. Meaning, the organization shall prepare a structured framework to meet the requirements of ISO 9001-2015. The organization shall determine the process needed for the quality management system, their applications throughout the organization. The process can be organized as a support process, core process, and a management process. When the processes are determined, at the same time, the organization shall determine the inputs required and the outputs expected from this. Second, the organization shall determine the sequence and interactions of this process, that is, the steps or the flow of activities within the process. Third, the organization shall determine and apply the criteria and methods, including monitoring, measurement, and related performance indicators needed to ensure the effective operation and control of these processes. The other is the organization shall determine the resource needed for this process and ensure their availability. Then the organization shall assign the responsibilities and authorities for this process. The organization shall assign the actor or the owner or the decision maker for this process. And then the organization shall address the risks and opportunities as determined in accordance with the requirements of Clause 6.1. So the organization here shall identify the risks so as to prepare the action plan and shall identify opportunities so that the organization can exploit it. And then the organization shall evaluate this process and implement any changes needed to ensure that this process achieves their intended result. And the organization should improve the processes as well as the quality management system, because the main principles of the quality management system is continuous improvement. And finally, to the extent necessary, which means as much as possible, the organization shall maintain documented information to support the operation of its process. The organization shall maintain documented information such as policies, processes, work instruction, and so on to support the operation of its process. And second, the organization shall retain documented information like records to have confidence that the processes are being carried out as planned. This is the end of our today's discussion. Once again, if you are new to my channel, please subscribe and hit the notification button to get updates. And if you like this particular video, please hit the like button and share to your friends. See you with next lesson, that is Clause 5. Thank you.